Por segunda ocasión, el escritor estadounidense Jonathan Franzen visita la Feria Internacional del Libro de Guadalajara para presentar su novela Pureza, a la que considera un libro con el más amplio espectro de temas que cualquiera de las anteriores. Ambientada en Alemania Oriental, Bolivia, California y la costa este, Pureza tiene como personaje central a una joven mujer que no sabe quién es su padre y a quien busca por dinero. La falta de idealismo de este personaje contrasta con la actitud de la que los rodean.
The young woman feels that the previous generation has not given her a very good world, that they have fallen down, they have not done a good job. And at the heart of the book is something that's very personal to me, which was a story of an extremely idealistic young marriage. Two people who tried to have no secrets from each other, tried to merge their souls together, and with predictably unhappy consequences. That is not actually a good idea for a marriage. It's true of the younger generation. They may intellectually despair, but there's something sort of cheerful. And precisely because they're not trying to change the world, they're actually a little better at being in it.
El personaje central, a decir de Franzen, es el más desesperanzador en un mundo en ruinas, y la pureza no es un valor.
Purity is kind of a bad word for me, and this might be our segue to the political situation in the United States, but you see what's the problem with the Republican primary? It's everyone is demanding ideological purity. Well, you know, purity is a great concept, but it doesn't really work in the real world. And you see this in the Middle East. What is ISIS trying to achieve? It's trying to achieve purity, a more pure form of the Islamic State. I'm not sure that literature has much agency in the world, but I know as an individual citizen that when I become frustrated with the black and white world that various ideologues are painting, this person is all bad, this person is all good, Mexicans are bad, Americans are good.
Pero Franzen también establece límites para la literatura, allá, en los linderos del humor.
And so one thing literature can do, I don't know if it does anything to make the world a better place, but it makes some of us feel better, is come along and laugh at those ideas of purity. And to say, this thing that looks simple, it's not simple. It's in fact incredibly complicated. So I see literature as having a complicating and to some extent comic role. It's there to laugh at the oversimplifications that we get in so much of the rest of culture.
Entonces le pregunto a Franzen si hay una visión generacional en su novela Pureza. La gente como usted y yo nacimos y crecimos teniendo como referencia la Guerra Fría para poder explicarnos los extremos, la URSS y los Estados Unidos. Eso ha desaparecido desde finales de los años 80. ¿Hemos realmente perdido esta referencia y necesitamos explicarnos el mundo en términos diferentes?
You know, in hindsight, the Cold War looks like a really strange time. And yes, we both grew up near the end of it. In a way, that's what my novel, The Corrections, was investigating. Here you have these Eastern European countries that were under Soviet rule, and suddenly the father was dead, and what do you do now? I think we're sort of past that, and as we saw in the economic crisis in Europe, it's a more interesting question now is who has sovereignty?
El ganador del National Book Award por The Corrections explica los nuevos ejes de poder.
The bankers seem to be running Europe. It's like the bankers come in, they're the most important people in the world, and the heads of state are saying, what should we do? And increasingly, both as ideology and as practice, in the United States, you have the large companies, particularly the large tech companies, dictating this is the way it's going to be, or else we're going to take our businesses overseas or whatever.
Ante ello, hemos perdido la capacidad de reconocernos como seres humanos. Franzen, como ya había mencionado, cree en realidades complejas, lejanas al blanco y negro. Habla de una empatía que intenta no naufragar en medio de las condiciones actuales en Europa, pero también en México.
in spite of the claims of digital media that it's going to make everyone have better empathy with other people, the standard measures show that the capacity for empathy is sharply decreasing, particularly among young people. Empathy is always difficult, and a certain amount of fear is understandable. If you were European and you see, well, the Middle East has, 100, 200 million people, and it's not getting any better, and what if everyone comes here? What's going to happen to Europe? What is frightening is people who just want to shut their minds. The Donald Trumps of the world, and who want to basically dehumanize all Mexicans. It's terrible.
Noticias 22, Víctor Gaspar.